So as I said, welcome. Just to introduce myself, I'm Catherine. I work for the Royal Society of Chemistry and I am the Professional Registration Specialist. So what that means is I manage applications for our registered awards, Registered Science Technician and Registered Scientist, which are managed by the Science Council, but I'll go into lots more detail about that as part of my presentation. Before we get started, I just wanted to run a couple of polls to get an idea of who we've got with us today. So I will launch the polls. Hopefully they will pop up on your screen, but if for any reason you can't see the polls, feel free to just post your answers in the chat, and you should be able to see a chat button at the bottom of the window. So hopefully you can now see the polls. I'm asking, are you an apprentice? Yes or no? If you are a member of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and if you've heard of professional registration before. You might know a lot about it, you might only know a little bit, or perhaps this is the first time that you're hearing about professional registration. Okay, got the results coming in. I'll give it a couple more seconds. If you can share a little bit about your background. And if you can't see the polls, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Are you an apprentice? Are you a member of the Royal Society of Chemistry? And how familiar are you with professional registration? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. So I'll share the results. So we have quite a few apprentices with us today. So welcome to 72% of you who are apprentices. And of course, anyone else who isn't an apprentice, I think we have some apprentice managers or development centre managers here with us today. We also have quite a few members of the RSC, so welcome. And if you're not a member, don't worry, I will be sharing information about membership of the Royal Society of Chemistry. And we've got a bit of a mix of whether you've heard of professional registration or not. We've got a few who are familiar with it to some extent, a couple who maybe aren't very aware of registration, and we have a couple of people who know a lot about professional registration. So for today's session, I think I'm going to set you a task. If you're already a member of the RSC, then let me know if you learn anything new about what the RSC offers. And if you're quite familiar with professional registration already, this can act as a bit of a test to check your own knowledge and see if you learn anything new about registration through today's workshop. So thank you very much for running that poll. I do have some slides to share today. So you should now be able to see my presentation, but please shout if you can't see it. So as I mentioned, I'm the Professional Registration Specialist for the Royal Society of Chemistry. My background is I used to be a technician in a university. So I worked in a teaching lab, and before that I was a forensic scientist. But when I was a technician at that university, that's when I became a registered science technician. So you might be able to see those post-nominals at the end of my name there. Just a little bit of housekeeping today. If you could stay on mute during the presentation, that'd be really helpful just to minimize any background noise. But we are going to have an opportunity for some Q&A today, and we also have some speakers with us. So if you'd like to ask our speakers any questions, you're welcome to come off mute towards the end of the presentation, and you can ask any questions you have. As a little bit of a spoiler, we are currently offering free membership for apprentices. I'm going to go into more detail as to what's included within membership a little bit later on, but if you're interested, you can claim your free apprentice membership using the link and the promo code that is currently on the slide. So the aim for today is to share some information about professional registration, since this is one of the best ways to gain recognition for an apprenticeship. But there will also be information towards the end about additional support from the Royal Society of Chemistry for apprentices. And as I've mentioned, we're going to hear from a couple of recent apprentices on their experience. So just to quickly introduce our speakers, Caleb, I wonder if you could just introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Caelan Graham. I'm a registered science technician and a senior laboratory technician at Glasgow Scientific Services. I've been at Glasgow Scientific Services for 8 years. I started as a modern apprentice, so that was the first sort of 3.5, 4 years of my career there, and eventually I got offered a full-time post as a lab technician. And just as of this time, 2 years ago, I got promoted to senior laboratory technician.
Brilliant, thank you, and congratulations on your promotion. And Catherine, could you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, so I'm Catherine, and I am a registered scientist as an associate member, and I'm working at Tronox. So I started at Tronox 6 years ago, also as an apprentice, and the first 5 years I was studying for a degree through Tronox, and then was fortunate enough to also be taken on by them full time. And I became a registered scientist with the Royal Society of Chemistry about 2 months ago now.
Great, thank you. And we're going to hear more about their experiences in a little bit. So firstly, I wanted to give a little bit of background about the Royal Society of Chemistry. I know we have quite a few members here today, but if anyone isn't familiar with our history, we were established in 1841 as the Chemical Society, and we became the RSC as we are today in 1980 after joining forces with 3 other chemical societies. So we are the professional body for those who work within chemical science, and our mission is to help the chemical science community make the world a better place, and that includes everyone within our community. So it absolutely includes those who complete an apprenticeship as a route into the chemical sciences, or maybe as a training and development opportunity. We have over 50,000 members across chemical science around the world. So we are an international professional body, and that includes technicians, researchers, forensic scientists, biochemists, nuclear workers, legal staff, teachers, engineers, glass blowers. The list goes on, and of course includes apprentices. So I'm going to dive straight in to what is professional registration. I've already mentioned it a couple of times, but professional registration is gaining an award status that shows what level you're working at and the skills that you use on a daily basis. Registration comes with a certificate and post-nominal letters, as you've seen. It's not an additional qualification or an extra membership, but it's an independent designation recognizing your skills and experience at your current career stage. And it doesn't represent doing anything extra. It's just getting that recognition for what you're already doing. I've got a quote here that professional registration provides independent recognition of your achievements and maintaining the exact standards required to join a global community of professional scientists. Now, that quote comes from the Science Council. So just for a bit of context, the Science Council are a membership organisation for professional bodies and other societies across science, like the Royal Society of Chemistry. So they have members, but they are organisations as opposed to individuals like you and me. And the Science Council are the ones who host the registers, and they decide on the competencies or requirements that someone needs to demonstrate in order to be awarded one of those designations that they manage. As opposed to the Royal Society of Chemistry, so that's who I work for, as introduced, we are a professional body, but we're also a licensed body for the registers. So what that means is we are licensed by the Science Council to award registered status on their behalf. And that includes awards like Registered Science Technician and Registered Scientist, which I'll be focusing on today. It's important to note at this point that you do need a membership to a professional body and a licensed body like the Royal Society of Chemistry in order to earn and maintain professional registered status, but there are many other licensed bodies across the different scientific disciplines. So let's start off with Registered Science Technician. So I might also refer to it as RSciTech. So RSciTech is an award, as it sounds, for technicians or those in any kind of technical support role and assistant scientists. Registered science technicians will generally work to prescribed procedures and methods, often SOPs in labs, in order to undertake their routine work. They generally work with minimal supervision, and you might work in a team, and you play a really important, invaluable role in supporting high quality science, and that's across all different sectors. So it could be in teaching, research, laboratories, hospitals, universities, and any kind of industry. In terms of eligibility, registered science technician demonstrates working at least a level 3 standard. So that's equivalent to a level 3 apprenticeship, like the laboratory technician standard, a modern apprenticeship, A-levels, or Scottish Highers. And this is just a minimum suggested qualification level. It might be that someone is working in a role that's appropriate for registered science technician, but may have different or higher qualifications. So none of this is really fixed eligibility. Moving on to registered scientist, or RSci, I might refer to it as. RSci is a measure of excellence, as is RSciTech. They're both quality marks. And RSci is for practicing scientists or those working in higher technical roles. So registered scientists can apply their scientific knowledge and high-level practical skills to solve complex problems. So problem-solving skills are starting to come in, and you're able to apply that scientific knowledge of the concepts and techniques that you use on a daily basis in new and different areas of work. Registered scientists will generally work quite independently. It could still be within a team, but you are taking on more autonomous work. You can apply your judgment in your daily role, and that last sentence there discusses how RSci is really appropriate for those who have gone through a vocational route into the chemical sciences, just like an apprenticeship. Looking at eligibility for RSci, RSci demonstrates working at least a level 5 standard. So that's equivalent to a level 5 or a level 6 apprenticeship, like the laboratory scientist or technician scientist standards, Scottish and national vocational qualifications at level 4, HNDs, foundation degrees, or an MVQ level 5 or SVQ level 4. Again, these are just suggested minimum qualifications. It might be that someone has different qualifications or higher, but are working at a particular level in a particular role. That means registered scientist is the best fit for them for recognition for the work that they do on a regular basis. As well as your scientific knowledge and those qualification suggestions, the important thing about RSciTech and RSci is your professional experience. So you do need to have a minimum amount of professional experience to apply for one of the awards. So we suggest at least 1 year's work experience for RSciTech and at least 2 years work experience for RSci. So hopefully you can see how these awards complement an apprenticeship really nicely. And it does need to be working within an appropriate role. So I've introduced the awards quite briefly there. So I'm going to take a look at the kinds of skills or competencies that are represented within both of those awards to give you an idea of which award is most appropriate for a particular job role or duties or responsibilities that someone might have as part of their regular job. And I'm going to give a bit of an idea of how those two awards, RSciTech and RSci, fit into the overall development framework of professional registration. So within both of the awards, we ask you to demonstrate particular skills or competencies, and these are split into 5 key areas. Within these 5 key areas, that's across your technical and your practical skills, but also your transferable skills. So it's a really wide range of skills that are represented within an award. So you can see in the first column, that is the first key area that is covered within the award requirements. And then you can see the kind of competencies that you'll demonstrate for RSciTech, and then how it progresses to registered scientist or RSci. So within Section A, we're looking at your application of knowledge and understanding. So this is your scientific knowledge, perhaps gained through on-the-job training or time at college or university, and how you apply it in your regular job. And you can see for RSciTech level, you're able to apply your knowledge and you can interpret and evaluate any data or observations that come up. And then moving on to RSci, you're able to apply your extended scientific knowledge in the context of new or different areas, and you can start proposing solutions based on your analysis and interpretation of the information, concepts, and ideas that are available through your regular work. The second key area, so section B, is on your personal responsibility. This is all around how you are quite proactive or take the initiative in your work, and also covers things like health and safety. So at RSciTech level, you'll be working with minimal supervision and you're able to apply those safe working practices, so perhaps work to SOPs and COSH regulations and any other kinds of regulation within a scientific workplace. And for RSci, you're able to work autonomously, but you might still need to escalate issues as they come up, and you can take responsibility. So there's an increase in responsibility there for those safe working practices, but you also contribute to evaluating those, and you can also work sustainably. Moving on to section C. So this is where we start to see more of those transferable skills come in. So the C area of competence is looking at your communication, your interpersonal skills, and how you work with others. And then moving on to the level required for RSci, you're able to effectively and appropriately use your transferable skills in order to maintain productive working relationships and resolve problems. So you can see that problem solving coming through there. In the D competencies, these are looking at professional practice. So this is another opportunity to demonstrate your scientific knowledge, how you recognize problems and apply scientific methods based on your knowledge of those methods and the scientific background. And we're looking at continuous process improvement here. So you're able to participate in improvements within your workplace or your team or your department. And then moving on to RSci level, you're able to take an active role in those improvements and how they develop over time. And finally, the E competencies are all around your professional development. So one of the really nice things about both RSciTech and RSci is that it demonstrates your commitment to continued professional development. And that's what's assessed within the E competencies. So you're able to demonstrate how you maintain and enhance your competency within your area of practice. And at RSci level, you can promote any relevant codes of conduct and practice that are in place within your workplace. So hopefully this table demonstrates how your skills will be developing and expanding as you progress throughout your career and perhaps to a higher apprenticeship. So why should you apply for professional registration? So the main benefit is that you can demonstrate that you meet a number of standards and that you're working at a professional level. And this evidence can be used to support your career development, from maybe an internal promotion to getting job interviews or earning a higher grade job. And these awards provide evidence of your technical expertise, the quality and the impact of your work, but also your transferable skills, as you've seen. And the awards are a professional and public recognition of your key skills and experience. And professional bodies are really keen to support professional registration because we recognise what an important demonstration it can be, in particular for technicians and anyone who's gone through a vocational career route. So registration gives you that public recognition of your knowledge and expertise, having gained through your work experience, your time at college or university, through the use of post-nominal letters like RSciTech or RSci, But also in terms of that public recognition, the Science Council has an online directory of registrants. So you can opt in to appear on that register, and then anyone can go on to the Science Council's online register and search to see whether someone holds one of those professional awards. So whether they have already demonstrated all of those skills or competencies that we've looked at and made that commitment to continue professional development. So I've introduced the registered awards, but I think it's time to hear from one of our speakers. So I'd like to introduce Calum to tell us a little bit about his experience. So Calum, I've got some questions for you that I'd like to hear your perspective on. So why did you apply for registration following your apprenticeship?
It was just for basically extra professional sort of recognition. I had other colleagues who basically went to university, but that didn't really fit in with my life at the time. So the RSciTech, applying for that, basically I could fit that around my own work. And I took it as almost like a sort of a diary of what I was learning day to day, so I could get that professional recognition for it.
Great. I like that description of kind of using it as a diary. And how did your apprenticeship prepare you for applying for professional registration?
Well, as part of my apprenticeship, I'd done something called an SVQ, so a Scottish vocational qualification. And the answers to the questions are quite similar, almost like that story. What are you doing? What are you doing now? And sort of what was the result of what you were doing afterwards. So the questions again were quite similarly laid out. I had to do a CPD myself as part of my apprenticeship, and I do that as part of my employment as well. So that's something I was familiar with, and I could keep going and performing.
Brilliant. So you didn't find it too much extra work because you'd already done all that kind of prep for
Yeah,
your apprenticeship?
I was used to answering similarly laid out questions before in like that sort of format, so that definitely helped.
Oh, brilliant. Have you seen any benefits from having your registered status, for example, within your employer?
Yeah, it shows to my employer that I'm not willing to sit still and that I'm always willing to continue my own professional development. My long-term also goal from this is actually to become a CChem, a chartered chemist, because some of our managerial roles require that as a requirement for that particular role. So that's my long-term thing. I'm currently, although I've got my registered science technician qualification, I am now applying for registered scientist as well. So it's just that slowly see that progression through my career.
Oh, brilliant. As I mentioned, these awards are part of a development framework. So we saw RSciTech to RSci, which you're currently undergoing. But you mentioned CChem, which is Chartered Chemist, which is the RSC's own chartership. So that's always something that people can aim for, have an objective to work towards. So that's really great to hear that that's kind of in your long-term plans.
Yep.
So you've introduced kind of what's next for you in terms of kind of your registration journey. But what about your RSC membership? As introduced, RSC membership or membership to a professional body is required to become professionally registered. So how do you see your RSC membership fitting in with that progression or supporting you in future?
And quite a similar answer. It's another recognition of your skills and your development. And if I ever wanted to sort of move employers, it's a recognition of that skill. Because I'm currently sitting, I don't have a university degree, but then I can show that I'm working at a university degree level. Because I'm doing a lot of, there was a times where my colleagues were obviously getting that recognition for university, but I was doing a lot of more practical stuff. So that was also more appealing to an employer. So if I could get that across in any application forms that I was going for, that was what I found to be a sort of big benefit.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
There will be more information about RSC membership and kind of how that fits into progression and the registered awards a little bit later on in the presentation. If you have any questions as we go through the presentation or as our speakers are sharing their experiences, feel free to pop them in the chat. Otherwise, there will be time towards the end of the webinar to ask any questions you have. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I will re-share my presentation and move on to how to apply for professional registration. So there are two routes. You can either apply directly through the Royal Society of Chemistry or via the Science Council's website. And looking at the skills and competencies that you need to demonstrate for those awards, we had a look at those overarching topics. There are 14 competencies for RSciTech and 15 for RSci. And those 5 key areas that we looked at are the same for both RSciTech and RSci. And you've already seen how those skills develop across the 2 awards. So one of these awards is something to aim for and apply for following completing an apprenticeship. So when you get to that stage, you will submit an application form, which is where you will record all of your evidence against those 14 or 15 competencies, together with a copy of your CV and evidence of your highest qualification. And that will go to registers@rsc.org to apply directly through the Royal Society of Chemistry. I will mention that email address several times throughout today's presentation. Those emails do come to me. While it's something to apply for once you've completed an apprenticeship, there's nothing stopping you completing the application form as you work through your apprenticeship. You heard from Caleb that a lot of the skills and experiences that you're already building up will be appropriate to use as evidence within your application form. So that's something that you can be working on, ready to submit once completing your application. Within that application form, you will provide one specific example for each of the 14 or 15 competency statements across those 5 key areas, which you can see as a bit of a reminder on the slide there. And these examples will discuss how you apply your knowledge and your skills and the impact of your work. As well as completing the application form, we have lots of guidance available through the RSC. You can download the application form and a guidance document from our website, and I've just popped a couple of short links on the slide there. And I do recommend reviewing the guidance when you're completing your application, as this will explain exactly what's needed and also how to put together your examples to ensure that your impact is clearly described and demonstrates how you meet the requirements for that award. As I mentioned, it doesn't represent doing anything extra, but just making sure that you are clearly describing how you meet and apply those competencies on a daily basis. So this is the process to go through to complete a full application for RSciTech or RSci. But for anyone who's completed an apprenticeship in England or is currently undertaking an apprenticeship in England, the Science Council have recently developed a shortened application process for apprentices based on the fact that an apprenticeship covers the kinds of skills, behaviours and experiences that are required to achieve a professional award. So many apprenticeships in England have been mapped by the Science Council and confirmed as aligning to the standard of RSciTech or RSci, depending on the level of the apprenticeship. So when you're in a position to apply, if you've completed an apprenticeship in England, instead of providing a statement against the 14 or 15 competencies for RSciTech or RSci, it's a much more streamlined route. So you will instead only need to provide an apprenticeship certificate, complete 1 or up to 4 competency statements, depending on the apprenticeship that you've completed, instead of those 14 or 15, and complete an apprenticeship reflective statement. And this is a form where you can identify and discuss some of the most valuable aspects of your apprenticeship experience and that you understand their impact. So that could cover, for example, what was the most valuable thing you learned? What aspect was most challenging? And how do you feel your apprenticeship will benefit you in your career going forwards? You'll also need to provide an employer supporting statement, but as it sounds, that's for your employer to complete. So all you need to do is ask them to provide that. I just want to emphasize that at every stage of the application process, either this shortened route or the full application route, when you're putting together your application, there is lots of support available from both the Science Council and the Royal Society of Chemistry, and you'll be expected to go through the process with your manager or supervisor, and they can help you to pull out all the relevant information and guide you with putting together those competency statements. Also, part of my role is to provide you with feedback on any element of your application and work with you on your application to make sure it's in the best possible state and demonstrates really clearly how you meet all of those requirements for that professional award. So once you're in a position to send back your application documents, I will then be around to provide support and guidance. Just a note on this shortened application route, if you are eligible to go through that route, you will need to email registers@rsc.org in order to receive those shortened application documents. That's because not everyone is eligible to go through this route, so the application documents are not available to download from the website. However, the full application documents are, if you'd like to use those for reference for the kinds of competencies or skills that are represented within an award. So when applying through the Royal Society of Chemistry, I've got a bit of a flow diagram for how the application process goes. So as mentioned, for that shortened route, just drop me an email at registers@rsc.org and I will send over the application form and all the guidance that you need. And then for both routes, the application form is where you will record all of your details and the answers for the competencies, and for the shortened route, the reflective statement and a supporting statement from your referee. So that's normally your line manager or supervisor. You will then send all of those application documents, so the application form, a copy of your CV, and supporting documents. So that's either evidence of your highest qualification for the full application route, or a copy of your apprenticeship certificate for the shortened route. And all of that comes to registers@rsc.org. So that comes to me. I will have a look through, make sure you've covered everything, and I might also offer suggestions of where you could add a little bit more detail to make sure that all of your competency examples are fully met. Once you've addressed those suggestions, I will then send your application to our external assessors. So another nice thing about these awards is your application is peer reviewed. So that adds a level of robustness to the entire application process. And our assessors are other professionals. They're members of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and they also have one of the registered awards, or perhaps a chartered award. And they also have lots of professional experience. They have about 8 weeks to look over your application and then return any recommendations or request any more detail in your answers. I will then pass on that feedback back to you. And once you've had a chance to update your application according to their feedback, I'll then pass it back to the assessors, and they have another 2 weeks to just check over those minor revisions. And then after those 2 weeks, provided that extra detail satisfies their request, I will then get in touch to say your application was successful and you have been awarded RSciTech or RSci. And then you can start using those post-nominals straight away. You don't have to wait for your certificate, but that will come through the post in due course. As mentioned, there is guidance available at every stage of this application process. If it seems like quite a daunting task looking at this kind of flow diagram, but the RSC and your line manager will be there to support at every stage. I'd like to ask our second speaker now to share their experience. So I'm going to hand over to Anne-Catherine. And I've got a similar question that I asked Caleb. So why did you apply for professional registration following your apprenticeship?
I think one of my biggest fears was as I was coming towards the end of my apprenticeship and coming up to graduating, that I would sort of hit a brick wall with my development and sort of learning. So I think it was just to sort of ensure that I could still progress my career even if I wasn't studying anymore. And at that time, my manager was actually doing his application for becoming a fellow. So that really encouraged me to take a look at the Royal Society of Chemistry and what I could sort of gain from that and what it could sort of give me. So that's what really encouraged me to apply at the time.
Great. And you completed an apprenticeship in England, which meant you were eligible for that shortened route that I discussed. How did you find going through that shortened application route for registered scientist?
Similar to Caleb, the as part of the apprenticeship, there is a endpoint assessment that you're continuously gathering evidence for during your apprenticeship, and the questions are very similar in the sense that they are laid out the same, they're sort of asked the same, and they are very, very similar questions. So that really helped. It was generally a nice application, not too time consuming. It was a nice shortened route, and it was actually a really good opportunity to sort of reflect on all of my achievements and how I had developed professionally throughout my apprenticeship. So I feel like going through a degree apprenticeship can sometimes be quite fast paced, sort of learning on the job and doing your degree at the same time. So it was really good to just sort of look back on everything that I had done and how far I'd come in those 5 years.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really great to hear. Those kind of reflective skills, although it's something that's specifically asked for as part of the shortened application, it's still going to be really useful going through the full application as well. So being able to look back on all of your examples, how you've applied your skills and experience, and being able to reflect on that impact is really important as part of an application, regardless of which route you go through. So that's really great to hear. So that's you've touched a little bit about how your apprenticeship prepared you for applying for professional registration. Was there anything else kind of thinking about your apprenticeship and then your decision to become registered where it kind of supported you?
I think it just being really well prepared for the endpoint assessment really helped with that application, because like I say, I was sort of gathering evidence all through my apprenticeship, which just sort of made it so much easier at the end point.
Great. And that's a good example of the fact that you don't have to do anything extra for these awards, especially through an apprenticeship. You've already met all of those competencies, so it's just a case of getting it down within the application and then reflecting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And finally, what's next for you? And do you see your RSC membership or your RSci status supporting you in future?
Absolutely. So like I say, I think it just sort of encourages me to keep progressing my career, and I think it's really good. So it just sort of encourages to take sort of added opportunities which aren't necessarily work related, but they do sort of really sort of help and go alongside the application process. So things such as I recently became a mentor for a college student to sort of make sure they're on the right path and sort of guide them through college and getting into a university that they want. In the future, I'm probably looking at oh gosh, the words just left me. In the future, I'm looking at applying to become a member or sort of chartered status. So I think that will really go alongside that and help me to keep progressing. And obviously connecting with others within the Royal Society of Chemistry, sort of connecting with other people in the field. So we're a titanium dioxide manufacturer, and I work within the coatings department of that, but I'm by no means a coatings expert. So it'd be really good to maybe reach out to some people who do work in that area and sort of maybe help with some of the work that we do here.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Congratulations on completing your apprenticeship and, of course, your RSci status very recently. And that mentoring opportunity sounds brilliant for kind of everyone involved. We often hear from our registrants that just going through that application process can be a really nice confidence boost to then support others and also help in your own progression. So that's really great to hear. Thank you. That's really interesting that you say about using kind of your RSC membership and the networking opportunities. I'm going to move on to RSC membership, but there is a question in the chat saying if you need an apprenticeship certificate to apply for registration, then you can't be registered if you're still an apprentice, and that is correct. So while you will need to complete your apprenticeship in order to submit an application, you can always be working on that application whilst you're still completing your apprenticeship. So it's in a really good position to then submit once you do have that apprenticeship certificate. Thank you for that question. As I move on to information about RSC membership, please feel free to keep popping your questions in the chat. So having a look at some of the support available through the RSC. I already mentioned, but we are currently offering free apprentice membership for anyone currently completing an apprenticeship at any level, and that is available using the promo code APP100, and you can enter that on the registration pages as you go through the application to become an apprentice member. You can have a look at all of the RSC membership categories via that short link on the slide, but you might want to consider where to go next with your RSC membership. For example, if you're completing a level 5 or a level 6 or higher or advanced apprenticeship, you might want to consider associate membership or AMRSC. All levels of membership come with a huge range of additional benefits. So I've put some on the slide here, but there are a huge number. So I'm just going to rattle through just some. So that includes things like copies of Chemistry World magazine, which comes through every month. I received mine this week. Discounts, including on Apple products, cinema tickets, phone calls, gym memberships, restaurants, magazine subscriptions, journals, books, publications, and you'll also receive newsletters on all the latest updates and opportunities from the RSC, and any level of membership can support you in applying for professional registration. Once you have completed an apprenticeship, you can then upgrade to the next membership category. And just to make you aware, we do also offer reduced membership costs for anyone earning less than £31,000 a year, and that's for any membership category. Thinking about progression through the RSC, through membership, but also professional registration, I've got a diagram here to have a look at how your registered status and also your career progression, and as you increase in experience, can help you develop and progress through the RSC. So apprentice membership falls under this affiliate bubble here. You can see that we've got the two professional awards linked to that bubble. So we've got RSciTech here and RSci, and RSci then progresses to associate membership. That's because RSci demonstrates the requirements and your chemical science knowledge needed to progress to associate membership. So you can see how RSci can be used as a membership pathway to progress through the Royal Society of Chemistry. Once you've developed more professional experience, you can then progress to member category. And as you move through these member categories, those benefits that you get with your membership also increase. Member category will then open up more benefits, and you can see that we've got this additional bubble, chartered status, also linked to member and fellow category of the RSC. Chartered status might be something to aim for as you progress in your career, take on more responsibility, and you're developing those skills that you've already started progressing through as part of a registered award. And the application process for chartered status might be similar to that of professional registration. So just going through the application process for RSciTech or RSci will already put you in a really good position to complete similar applications in future. So regardless of where you start off in your career, there's always room to progress and develop through the Royal Society of Chemistry and through professional awards. I've also got a case study from a recent successful registrant who went through the shortened application route. So this is Roger's experience. I appreciate it might be a little bit small on the screen, but you can find this case study on the Science Council website. So Rogers reflected on his skills and experience from his apprenticeship and what motivated him to apply for professional registration and RSciTech. And he said two key things motivated his application. One was support for the future, so being able to attend webinars on topics like futures as a laboratory technician, and the event and the information available provided clarification and education on careers and opportunities within industry. It got him thinking about how to progress, and it also provided an opportunity to ask questions. Like today, you can ask questions for our speakers, but having access to those other kinds of networking events allowed Rogers to understand experiences of other fellow technicians. The other key motivation was validation, and he said it's nice to have your experience and knowledge validated externally. It gave him recognition and it cemented in his mind the skills and competencies that he's able to deliver within his work. He also said that the process was streamlined and straightforward with lots of support available. Looking at other support from across the Royal Society of Chemistry for apprentices, I would highly recommend having a look at our webpage of Future in Chemistry. There are lots of resources here for apprentices and for anyone who supports apprentices or students considering an apprenticeship. Within A Future in Chemistry, there is a page about preparing for an endpoint assessment, which you might be approaching if you are completing an apprenticeship within England. So within this area, there are assessment guides for the different standards and information on preparing for that endpoint assessment. And at the moment for National Apprenticeship Week, we have highlighted lots of apprentice career profiles where current and former apprentices have shared how they got into their role and how their apprenticeship has supported their development and progression. We also have a video from one of our members, Gary Thorpe, who completed an apprenticeship and gained RSciTech and then RSci status as a result. And he's been at the forefront of quality and DNA technology, which helped develop the COVID-19 vaccines. Further down on this page, there are lots of other areas of support for anyone considering an apprenticeship and also support for teachers, careers advisors and employers. So you can access this whole site using the short link on the slide, which is rsc.li/future. Finally, another couple of resources open to apprentices through the RSC. So we have annual RSC Apprentice Prizes. These are to recognise really great apprentices who have been working alongside studying. There are up to 3 prizes available every year, and it comes with a cash prize of £1,000. Nominations are currently closed, but they should open towards the end of this year. And we also have a mentoring scheme open to RSC members. It's open to associate and member category of RSC membership, but something that RSciTech and RSci provides is access to the RSC's mentoring scheme if you're not in one of those 2 categories. So that's a way that professional registration can support you in your development through the Royal Society of Chemistry. Also, your RSC membership will offer discounts on training courses, and this is our CPD area of the RSC website. And this is where you can find over 100 training courses, which we have assessed as being really high quality and really good value for money. There are various subjects across chemical sciences, and you can see from that kind of front page that also includes skills for technicians. Where to go for support? So I've mentioned this email address a couple of times throughout the presentation, but registers@rsc.org. Feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions about RSciTech, RSci, the application process, or if you have any questions about the wider Royal Society of Chemistry. I'm sure if I don't know the answer, then I probably know someone who does. So thank you very much, everyone, for dialing in this lunchtime and for your attention. And also thank you very much to our speakers, Caleb and Anne-Catherine, for sharing their experiences of their apprenticeship and becoming professionally registered. I can see we've got a couple of questions in the chat, so if there is anything that you'd like to ask, feel free to pop that in the chat box. You can claim your free RSC apprentice membership via that short link and the promo code APP100. And as mentioned, this presentation will be available afterwards via the recording if you'd like to catch up. So let's have a quick look at the questions that we have. Would you need to have completed an apprenticeship to get RSciTech, or can you apply while you're still in progress? If you are still completing an apprenticeship at maybe that level 3 standard, then you will need to complete your apprenticeship in order to apply and be awarded registered science technician. But if you're currently on maybe a level 5 or a level 6 apprenticeship and you've already completed a level 3, then you may be able to get that RSciTech award whilst you're then studying for your higher apprenticeship. If you have any kind of more questions about your specific background or experience, then you can always email me at registers@rsc.org. And if you attach a copy of your CV, then I'll be able to better advise for your specific situation. If you've completed a foundation degree, but you're currently working towards a top-up for a bachelor's degree, what membership would you recommend? I would suggest having a look at affiliate membership. But you can always use something like registered scientist to then progress to associate member category. Again, if you'd like to send me a copy of your CV, then I can advise on specific cases. Were there any other questions on anything related to professional registration or the RSC? Or if you have any questions for our former apprentice speakers? Okay. I'll just give it another couple of seconds if anyone is typing. But if anything occurs to you after today's session, of course, you can always drop me an email and we can discuss any questions you have. And of course, once you're in a position to apply for professional registration, you can download the full application forms from our website. But also, if you would like to ask about your eligibility or undertake that shortened route for professional registration, then drop me an email and I can provide all of the application documents, including the guidance. Okay. I don't think there are any more questions. So thank you again to our speakers and to everyone for dialing in today. And I wish you a lovely rest of your day, and I look forward to hopefully working with you in future.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, bye.